We'll be low on numbers this evening. Anyway. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Sheppey Area Committee. If anybody's got any phones with them, please mute them or turn them off. Yeah. Have we anybody online?
Could any remote attendees please confirm if they can hear us?
Yes, Janet, we can hear you fine.
Thank you very much, everybody. Will remote participants keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, as this can affect the quality of the meeting? We're using remote video conferencing equipment, and for speakers to be picked up by the camera, they need to come near the front of the room. However, it can pick up audio further away. This little device called an owl is the camera, and it picks up the sound as well. We have with us this evening the Director of Regeneration and Neighbourhood, Emma Wiggins, next to me, Policy and Engagement Officer Janet Dart, Head of Environment and Leisure Martin Bell. Online we have Leisure and Technical Services Manager Joe Jenkins, and we have with us the Active Travel Coordinator Adrian Oliver. I'd like to welcome our County Councillors Andy Booth and Cameron Beard, and we have, I don't know if we don't seem to have everybody with us from the parishes.
We check which parish councillors are represented.
Yeah. Do we have any representatives of parishes? She's hiding. That's all right. Fine. That's angle. Anybody else? Yes. Chris Reed from Sheerness. Right. We're nearly through. Emergency evacuation procedure. If there's a fire, follow me closely and assemble in the car park outside. Do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Peter MacDonald. I don't believe we've got Councillor Pete Neal here. I don't know if anybody's heard from him. Yes.
I'm straight from work.
Might be a bit late. Okay. And also Councillor Nisanga.
Peter MacDonald had an operation week before last. Returned home during the week, so he might be online, but I would think he's probably still sleeping. Item 3, are there any declarations of interest on any items on the agenda this evening? Yes.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
Okay.
I didn't hear that, sorry. Okay.
Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of September. Minute numbers 297 to 306. Are you happy that that's a full record of that meeting? All agreed? Thank you very much. We have matters arising next, and that is printed on the agenda. Are there any questions anybody wishes to raise on the matters arising?
that all the matters, the first time you go bit by bit.
No, I'm just asking if anybody's got any,
The connectivity across Sheppey,
yes,
I catch buses and they're terribly,
sorry?
I catch the buses, so it's really important, and they're terrible. I don't have any updates, there are any.
So just by way of looking at the background, the enhanced partnership, which is a KCC partnership, is in the process of still being formed. I believe they're creating a bit of a hierarchy, my understanding. But ultimately, the reason for setting that up is to be able to oversee the county-wide bus improvement plan, which I think this committee has at least discussed in the past. They have been allocated money from the central government, but they haven't yet been paid that money. And therefore, until such money is forthcoming, it's a bit in abeyance at the moment, is what I've been communicated to from colleagues at KCC. So I think we need to wait for the new year, because ultimately there's been a change of personnel in government since Prime Minister Johnson issued his sort of ideas around the buses. So we need to see what happens in the new year to see whether or not KCC do actually receive their allocation of funding. And then I think what we can do, particularly as area committees, is if there are any issues, we can see how we can link in local issues, because that will be a bigger strategic partnership. So I think we'll see how that evolves in the new year. Is that okay?
Any other items?
Yes, please, Chairman, on number 12, can we have an update, please, from the officer again? If they're going out for tendering mid to late December, do they actually believe this will be spent by the end of the financial year? And on number 14, it's disappointing there isn't an update, but can be circulated. Can we please chase that up in time for the next meeting?
Yes. And thank you, councillor Beer. The new road plays part is progressing, as we say. It's going to be tendered this side of Christmas. The area committee money has until the end of the civic year to be spent rather than the financial year. So we are confident of spending that money pre that deadline.
Yes,
In a similar vein, can I also ask about number 5, the lighting along Sheerness Promenade? Now, we allocated money to that last year, and potentially are being asked to allocate more money to it this evening and give the option to those that way. Am I right that needs to be spent by the end of the civic year?
That's me again.
yeah.
Apologies. And so we've hit a lot of snags on this project. What was seen to be quite an easy fix, and we're very grateful for the area committee allocating the additional 8,000 into the pot. I have some positive news this week in that the supply is there. We are doing a final check on the ducting to make sure that we can then get it to each individual column. I'm told that we are unlikely to be able to reinstate all of the old lighting, but it will be spaced out enough to immeasurably improve the lighting down on the seafront. So this week has been a good week. We've had lots of other weeks where we've taken 10 steps back, but that's the most recent update I've got this week. So good news is the power is there, and the ducting we think is suitable to get a good number of the lights back on board. Will it be done by May? That's still our intention.
On that subject of the lighting columns, will there be the ability for us, for Sheerness Town Council, to put some more festive style summer lighting from those lines, which is what the other schools have done?
So the current specification is just about getting some lighting back. So we haven't I'll be honest, we haven't included the commando slugs as yet on the post to enable you to do that. But that doesn't mean that, you know, we're not in that position of having put the posts in. So that doesn't mean that we can't. We just need to obviously check with the lighting engineers that there is enough supply to be able to do both, as opposed to just the lighting. Is that, can I just check, is that a condition of the 8,000? No, okay.
Yeah, just to come back on that, we've got the lights in the seafront in Queensborough, and we put some lights along there between each of the lamp columns without obviously, temporarily, and then took them back down. When we then tried to formalise it and say we wanted to make them more semi-permanent, we were told that it wasn't possible because people can reach them from the seawall.
Yeah, and that's.
I just wanted to point that out, that might be a barrier too.
Yeah, and that's my concern, is obviously we've not put any detailed thought process into it, but we're certainly aware of the town council's view on that, and our first priority has to be getting some lighting back up there, because that is clearly what the project is motivated by. But yeah, we haven't forgotten that interest.
Any other questions on the feedback? I take that as no. Then go on to agenda item 6, which is active travel fund tranche 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for bringing presentations. Happening in a moment. There we go. But make me nervous. Okay, so we're talking about active travel fund, which the government has for being Catholics. We've had 3 portions of active travel funding since 2020. First 2 were really around the pandemic, and the 3rd is currently being implemented. And this is the 4th round, which is a 3-year fund. So the active travel fund was announced in July by Active Travel England and Department of Transports. It is a 250 million revenue fund and a 470 million capital fund. 250 million was released earlier in September, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the active travel fund or capital fund, the 470 million, was due to be released in September, but the shenanigans in government meant that that was delayed. However, in August, Active Travel England issued a self-assessment for each authority and with transport authority, and Kent completed theirs back in August. Not a great time to complete a survey, and submitted to Active Travel England, and they were graded as a 1. There were 5 grades from 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. 4 being the best, 0 being the worst. Kent came out as 1, which is pretty poor. But actually, an awful lot of transport authorities, especially in the shires, were all classed as 1. And what was appreciated was that Active Travel England accepted self-assessment as it stood, whereas a number of counties, West Sussex, Worcestershire, were downgraded to 0. That has implications for the funds that we can receive. So in September, the capability ambition fund was released, which is the 250 million revenue fund. We were advised by active travelling, that actually, the only use we can use for that money is actually to create better bids for active travel funding in the future. So it was, we've put our own bid into Kent of £165,000 to actually improve bids that we pulled together to go forward to national bidding programmes. So the road capital fund hasn't been released, wasn't released in October, wasn't released in November, maybe released before Christmas, who knows? But we know that it is coming down the line. We don't know exactly what it will look like when it does come. However, Kent County Council have been very wise and actually decided to go ahead with the anti-travel fund process and get ahead of the game so that when it is released, we are more prepared for whatever is thrown at us by the Department of Transport and Active Travel England. And so we have since October been pulling together ideas for the Active Travel Fund bidding process. And so, thankfully, so we don't have any official criteria or guidance, but we do have what was issued out in July, and we have obviously what has been said by the Chief Executive of Active Travel England and the Active Travel Commission. And the keys for this process is that we've got to build networks. So it's not about just building a trunk somewhere, it's about building a network. We've got to concentrate on conurbations where the most number of people live, because that's, according to Active Travel England, is the best value for money. We've got to align with government priorities, and we've listed them here. They are the cost of living crisis, levelling up, and carbon reduction. And finally, all the bids have to be ambitious. It has to be rebalancing our streets. So that means giving more weight to walking and cycling and less to motor vehicles. And they have to be inclusive. So everybody needs to be able to use them. So if we're talking about cycling facilities, they need to be used by anybody aged from 8 to 80. We are in a new world in transport. Active travel changed significantly back in 2020 when the government issued Peer Change, which is their strategy for making the country more accessible to anybody under their own steam. And to the real quote here is that places will be truly walkable. Travel revolution in our streets, towns and communities will have made cycling a mass form of transit. Cycling and walking will be a natural choice for many journeys, with half of all journeys in towns and cities being cycled or walked by 2030. We haven't got a lot of time to achieve that goal. Most of the heavy lifting will be walking, and but there's been a number of changes since Peer Change came through. We now have these, which are new cycle infrastructure design guidelines, which I'm probably the first that's actually read every page and keep coming back to it. But these are significantly different to anything we've had before. Also, there's a manual for streets has been around for about 20 odd years. Manual for Streets 3 is due to be released imminently, and that will be more about how we look at our streets from the outside in. So traditionally we've designed it from the inside out, aiming for how we move traffic quickly and efficiently. Now, Manual for Streets, we're looking at our streets the other way around. So how we prioritise walking and cycling. And you're probably aware that there's been some changes to the highway code, new priority system, which puts walking first, cycling, equestrian, and then cars, and then the heavy vehicles underneath that. And things like the priority junctions have changed. If you're turning left into a minor road, right into my road, you have to give way to a pedestrian who's crossing the road. Some significant changes. So how does that affect what we're proposing now? Well, there we go. Right, so these are examples of some of the possible interventions that we're looking at across Sheppey. And they are more priority crossings and raised crossings. Traffic lights that actually prioritise cycling, so with special cycling filters. Cycle lanes and cycle tracks. Huge variety of them. More traffic management and more raised crossings. So those are all examples over there. And there's a nice new bridge, which is a new design that's come from Network. It's cheaper, a lot cheaper. And so hopefully you can have some of those. So now, this is the really nerve-wracking bit. Does this get over? Here we go. So we have an active proposals map, which is loaded. It's loaded. Wait. Oh no. So here are all the potential interventions across three conurbations, Minster, Sheerness and Queenwood. The blue line is indicative network. And the brown blobs are all the different interventions. So you can zoom in and look at the different interventions, and you can see them after walking or cycling. So here in Rush, on this road here, Rushendon, there's a proposal to put a footway crossing, and there's a picture of an example, which is that in Sittingbourne, and someone's going to tell me what road that is. Staplehurst Road. Well, thank you. That's a Staplehurst Road, so it's continuous crossing. So what it is actually is the pavement continues across the front of the minor road. And there's lots of different interventions. What we're going to do is after the meeting, we'll share the link to this map so you can all see them. And so there's lots of other interventions. Again, this is this block here is a 20 mile an hour area of townwide speed limit proposal. Over here, lots of different interventions, and be interested to get people's feedback on these. So we'll share this link so you can all see it and give us your thoughts. But Bill's got a question.
Yes, you talk about conservation.
Yes.
You talk about preference for walking.
Yes.
Do we actually pavements to walk on, please?
Absolutely. So in here we've got pavements, new pavements located for Queenborough Road.
I'm interested in.
Road down to Russian.
Interested in Lower Road out to Leicester.
Road down to Lanesdale.
Including Hartley Ferry Road.
Yeah, we can't include that in this funding because we've got to focus on the population areas.
Which isn't unreasonable for Lanesdale, Walden, Bayview, yeah, East Church,
Yeah,
all along that lower road where there aren't any pavements.
there's pavements from, where?
There aren't any pavements. It's easier to say.
Okay, you're right, there's no pavements beyond, this point here. So from Danes Drive, there's no pavement right.
And when are the people supposed to be walking to and cycling to, because there's no employment in it's for them, so.
Yeah, but there's other reasons for people to walk and cycle, as there are other reasons for people to drive as well. There's
They put their bikes on their cars, drive to a spot and Sorry.
Yeah, we're not talking about leisure or anything, we're talking about, active travel as a form of transport. So this is why we're trying to connect the three main conurbations, Wimborough, Minster and Sheerness together. So people can travel between the three under the road scheme.
Right, so central, right, east, don't get in there.
Not on this funding, no. Because we have to concentrate on the higher population areas. And we have to look at, I mean, Minster's our biggest population area in the borough. We need to focus on how we can actually improve things for the most amount of people. If we go for any more rural environments, we won't get funding at all. We're only going to look at it. However, there are other funds on the way that potentially could be used to improve facilities over on the central and eastern areas. Absolutely. But not this particular one.
So no new builds down the lower road because of the infrastructure.
No funding from this particular fund for that sort of activity.
Thank you.
You know what I'm probably going to ask.
Yeah.
To get from Minster to Sheerness, Neptune Terrace, is that included?
We're still waiting to hear from Sheerness Town Council as to how much their plans were to cost. So we're still waiting to hear from council on that, because we've seen
You
that.
need to get me to McDonald's out of bed.
But we have to look at alternatives. So we have to, because we don't know how much that would cost at this stage, we have to look at whether there's an alternative way of doing it. So on here, you'll see there's things, all of which will have to be looked at and pursued. That's cost reduction. Yes, Cameron.
The town-wide 20-mile-an-hour scheme.
Yes.
I will say what I said at the joint transportation board last night. 95% of the roads in Queenborough and Halfway currently are 20 mile an hour.
Yes.
None of it works. There is no enforcement, no one sticks to it. And I would suggest when you leave here this evening, go up to Homeside, sit there for 5 minutes and tell me how many cars do 20 mile an hour down the road.
Yeah, and I can tell you, having cycled from the station this evening, nobody sits to the 40 mile an hour along Green Road, but halfway there. So there is an issue of that, and it's all about how we actually change the environment. So we've got to not just make it 20 mile an hour, you've got to change that environment, that street environment, to make it feel like it's not comfortable to go above 20 miles an hour. So that's the trick.
It might work in Sheerness with all the cars parked both sides of the road, and you can just about squeeze through.
It's just the speed of society.
It's all right, we'll get it.
The second issue now is when they brought in the scheme for Queenborough Parkway, they point blank refused to do it on all roads because they wouldn't apply it to any A or B roads.
Yes.
So the A250 and the A249 that comes in from the other end, both of those would not be 20 mile an hour. You would have a break down the middle of Sheerness.
Essentially, yes. The thinking at County Council is evolving and changing. And things like the fellowship experiment has definitely changed the way people are looking at 20 miles an hour in highways and in the members. You probably know that better than I do. And it's interesting that we're now looking, we have put in the 20 mile an hour speed limit at Newington. It'd be interesting to see how that's developing, because that's on the A2 and that is a very straight road. So it's be interesting how that's developing. And I think there's lots of things we need to learn about how we actually work with 20 miles an hour. Yes.
I go on that A2 once a month or so. And I feel very uncomfortable doing 20 mile an hour. These people trying to sit in the boot. I think I just go slow. But it feels like there's something wrong with my car. There isn't the environment, as you say. And very few people are going, anyone gets in front of me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a strange feeling, and does put people who are obeying the law under pressure, which is wrong. And we need to work out how to improve things for people who are obeying the law, which does mean we have to change the environment. So we have to work on what we need to do to bring those speeds down. You can't just put a sign and say it's 20. Got to do more than that.
Two questions. The cycle lanes, they're great. I lived in one in London. No one uses them, even on a lower road. You can drive along, and the cyclists are using the old road. They don't use that £1 million worth of cycle lane put in.
Whereabouts?
Along the low.
Oh, you sit past the corner?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a glorious piece of infrastructure that.
it is, but it's a glorious. People don't use it.
It's a shame because I mean, I do use it. It's a lovely piece of infrastructure. It's comfortable, it's safe. And yes, people should be using it. I would never recommend cyclists to use the lower road or the laid down road. I have once, but do it again.
They don't even use the cycle track along the old Bury Road. They tend to block that up as well.
My 20 mile an hour zones never works. I used to live in London as well. Cars aren't designed to do 20 miles an hour. A modern car, and it was causing far more pollution around areas. People slowing and turning out. Exhaust.
I think it's worth, if you ever have time to visit Faversham and have a drive around Faversham or walk around Faversham, because what the 20 mile an hour speed limit has actually done there is actually, most people perhaps don't see it, what it has done is take away the aggression. Instead of trying to accelerate to 30 or 40, that aggression has gone, and they're accelerating to 20 to 30. And as a
rated at 20.
As a Faversham, well, obeying the law is what I would recommend you to do, because that is the speed limit. I can only recommend you to obey the law.
Right?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You mentioned there may be other funding coming through. Can I just remind whoever's going to work with you that there for East Church, Wimbledon and Laysdown, there are probably about 4,000 residents, but we also have 5,500 holiday homes, and that bumps our population up a lot. And they like walking, and they also bring their cycles. But I wouldn't advocate cycling along Laysdown Road. In fact, I had a phone call, unfortunately, a short time ago to say that one of our residents has been killed up there on a mobility scooter. Because the pavements are not even wide enough.
If we could do everything, we would.
But if someone can bear that in mind in the next
Absolutely.
way.
But please be assured,
Say they are
with
in-
people like Bill on my tail, east of Sheppey is never going to be forgotten.
I've heard that about me as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is item 7, beach hut proposal. I ask Martin to introduce it.
I certainly can. Jay's online. This is Jay's report, but unfortunately he's not well. I didn't want to bring all the germs to the meeting tonight, so you've got me. But Jay is certainly online to be able to answer some questions as well. I won't do a massive introduction. For those that know me, I've been talking about beach huts since I started. And I have had a number of conversations with many people in the room over them. The report sets out an intention to install another 24 huts on Sheppey over the winter period. We will do so in a way that is sympathetic to the area. So we are planning to keep the specification very consistent with previous beach huts, so that there is that consistency. Within the licenses that we grant for them, there are fairly stringent standards that require the upkeep and maintenance of the huts. So we are doing our utmost to make sure that they are sympathetic to the environment. There remains an incredibly high demand for them. We had a run through the beach hut waiting list over the summer months. There are over 328 people that still want to come and own or rent a beach hut on Sheppey. It's fantastic. So we have covered in the report there, the additional income is it would help to support additional the existing council services. As I'm sure you're aware, the council has a budget to sort by February, and we need to look at all possible measures of raising additional income, and this is one way of doing so. So just before we submitted the papers, we reached out to the ward members and the parish councils. Happy to continue that conversation beyond tonight, but really here tonight, hopefully with a captive audience, to engender whether there's any support for the project. We would be looking to tender fairly quickly. Everything is ready to go in order to ensure that they would be in for spring. So tonight is really an opportunity for people to make comments, ask questions, raise concerns. And there's some questions at the bottom of the report that really talks about, obviously, the plan over this winter is just for 24, but with a waiting list of, as I said, 328. There could be scope to do more in the future. What I would say on that is we don't want to take over the whole of seafronts in order for beach huts. So we would, again, I'm not suggesting I could probably sell 300 beach huts, but we're not suggesting that we're going to do that. So the final question is there scope beyond the 24 that we're proposing to do over this winter? And I'll leave it at that, Chair. Happy to take comments.
Thank you very much. I'm actually the ward member of the area of Minster. So far, we've got two views. One is yes and one is no. The biggest issue that's arisen is car parking, and currently there isn't sufficient car parking in the area for the facilities that you've already got. The other one is that, if you remember, there was a big issue about consultation with the local community about the toilets, and that's something that I think we should carry out with the people in the locality. Having said that, a lot of other people are quite happy to have more, but they're not the ones affected by the rapid car parking or the whatever. But that sort of kicks it off. Anybody else want to? Angela?
Yeah, I think this has been pushed for some time by a number of people. And I think as long as the consultation doesn't say absolutely no way, then it's a good start. A good slow, don't mean slow, but steady. Without stopping the area, what would you say is the limit of the scope? Or, sorry, Jay, what is the limit of the scope? Because you probably know every pebble down there what I'm thinking is, now, I'm pretty sure that there's not room for, especially with car parking, there's not room for another 350 beach huts. But then they will. So this is a start, 24. How much further can we actually go?
At Minster, we have deliberately cut it short at the final staircase. I don't think there's much further on the front line we could go. Potentially there could be a second row. Laysdown, again, we've gone pretty much as far as we think we can on the first row and just happened to be coincidentally 12 again. At Laysdown, we have left a separation between the existing and the proposed new to allow access. You'll note it Laysdown, it's slightly different design where it's sort of has a picket fence surrounding a knee rail at the back, so it creates a sort of bit of a compound around the hut. So rather than have to ask people to walk either end of the huts, we've created an access point through the middle to allow people access to the beachfront. So in answer to the question, Angela, on the current front row, I don't think there's much scope for any more, to be honest. The 24 is about it. But there is an opportunity potentially at Minster to do a second row, should there be an appetite for that.
But there isn't the parking, is there?
Oh,
Yes, I've only just seen this busy. And, I'm speaking for myself as chair of Town Parish Council, but I know what the feeling is. I went along there and had a look today, and if you've got these 12 up there, there will be no beachfront area for people to go and sit along where the car park is. Now, that's traditionally been a car park where people can pull up, overlook the scene, they can fish or do what they want to do or just have a picnic. There's also, where you're proposing to put these 12, 4 benches that people like to go along and sit on. So to me, you have pushed the boat out of Laysdown and absolutely fulfilled going right along the seafront. And I know the parish council are not going to be happy, but you seem as though you've already made your mind up that they're going to go in over the winter without any consultation, which I'm rather disturbed about. And as I briefly said to you, I went along there today to look, and where the troubled area has been affected in this committee before about overnight parking, camper vans and everything, and you tried to streamline that and make that manageable. It didn't. But there are posts all going along that now. Pavement bit where all those caravans park during the summer and even later. I don't even think a car will be able to get in now when it's supposed to be in the city. So before you go any further with Laysdown, I would like to ask you to really have another think, because that is going to block off the whole of that grass area from people being able to park, overlook the sea.
Bill,
Thank you, Chairman. I concur with the chair of Laysdown Parish Council regarding losing the bench seat area where people can still park up without into the sea. Right, if that's blocked off with 12 further beach huts, we've lost that. In addition, I would also like to know how much you're charging for beach huts on a rental basis and then on a longer term basis. And what's the occupancy rate for it? The same as it is now?
in the report,
Right, so if,
you answer that first.
yeah, well, I can answer
Yeah.
Pat and
Yeah.
Tatum at the same time. So, as you'll notice in the ones that we've already put up there, we've been really sympathetic of the bench placements, so you can actually gain access to all of the existing benches as you go through them. And I'm sure when I saw Jay's hand go up, he was going to say the same thing. We absolutely recognise the role that those benches play in people going and sitting at the seafront. And so these, whilst there is a picket fence, that picket fence is there purely to stop a little child running off what is a really big drop the other side. It's not there to say that that piece of land belongs to the beach hut. Okay, so it's purely there from a health and safety point of view, whereas it's not in the Minster one. So unless Jay corrects me, my understanding is that the huts will be placed around those benches and protect that access to the seafront. What you will also see is we haven't really put them up really close like you see on some seafronts where they're nose to tail. There is a good distance between the huts. And again, that's about understanding that visual impact where somebody can still sit in a car directly behind that new rail fence. And if they place themselves correctly, see through into the seafront. So we're certainly not looking at that. And I can assure you in the design of the schemes, we have considered that. Bill, you asked the questions around charges. Now, at the moment, the fees and charges document is out for consultation as part of the budget consultation. So you will see in there our new fees from memory, although Jay's going to correct me with the exacts. I think it's currently just under £500. And I think there's a 10% increase that was put on that for an annual, and that's for somebody that purchases the hut from us and then pays us ground rent for the hut to stay on that piece of land. The annual rental is the other option, and that's where SVC, Swale Borough Council, retain the ownership of the hut and people rent it from us on an annual basis. That's currently at £1,200 a year, Councillor Tatton. You will see in the fees and charges document, because I've had many a conversation with Minster where there was concern about accessibility to local people. So what we've introduced within the draft fees and charges this year is a weekly rental charge that hopefully should bring it into more access for local people to be able to enjoy them when they choose as well. So again, we're listening. I can assure you we are listening. I don't understand the criticism about consultation, because that is exactly what tonight is. Sheppey Area Committee is a consultation mechanism for members and members of the public. So we are absolutely here to listen to what members of the public want.
Just the last point I did make, so is occupancy.
So currently we're at 100% occupancy. Every hut on the Isle of Sheppey has an owner or a renter. And if you mean occupancy in terms of the times that they're allowed in there, the terms and conditions of the licence are very stringent. Jay, tell me if I'm wrong. I think it is 11 o'clock at night. They are not allowed to be staying overnight.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. So this appeared in its current form last week at Minster Parish Council. So none, public consultation hasn't happened, and it's worrying. It's incredibly worrying. I'm aware that you've got a hole in your budget. I'm aware of that. You cannot use Minster's assets to fill your budget hole without good consent from the people who live there. Minster's been used on a number of occasions like this. And obviously, from the response that you've had from those beach huts already, you'll see that the population do not feel consulted with at all. And I'm assuming Lansdowne may have the same issues, in that we've had a 3-page piece of paper at the meeting to discuss this with 3 questions at the bottom. That's not what residents want in terms of actually feeling that you're doing this with them rather than to them. That piece of land that you're going to put those 12 beach huts in is wanted by the community, and so is the wildlife that's there, so is the area the way it is. You know, this isn't about filling Swale's budget hole. This should be about doing what is best for the local community, and it is not. And I don't see how it can be. The parish council only just found out about it on the last agenda. I've got to say, I'm worried what bad consultation looks like. So, no, and I think Linkster's response was quite plain that actually we'd appreciate somebody coming over and talking to us about it. Appreciate the extra level. I mean, you guys were there when you saw how much interest came from the toilet proposal at the meeting. There were public meetings where the residents organised it for themselves, and there was 200 people there. I mean, do we really feel that if this goes ahead, that those people have had adequate chance to make a response to this proposal? I don't feel that that's the case, and we would love you to come back and talk about it more, so that everybody can have the opportunity to at least understand what you're doing and how you're going to go forward with it. I appreciate you letting board members know. That's very well. I can only go
I'll
on.
see it here. First time I've actually, we've talked about all sorts of variations, but this is the first time it's actually come from that I'll see on a piece of paper that you want to go out.
That's two kind of photographs, that's two plans, nothing about, proper finances behind it, or how the deal's going to be struck, or waiting list. I mean, that's lovely. I'm sure loads of people would love a beach hut. That's fantastic. But really, are the residents going to be paying for this long term? I mean, the residents pay for the toilets down there. The residents pay for the parking. The residents are going to be the people putting up with the extra traffic and the extra. I think the residents' views and the voices completely lost here. You haven't got it at all in this paper. Sorry.
So, through you, Chair. I'm afraid I just don't agree with those statements. So there is a clear demand for this service to be provided because the waiting list shows that. The ability for the council to generate income that helps deliver key council services has to be a consideration of this council.
It's done that bit for you already.
So the reality is I have been out to the parish council and answered a number of questions on beach huts previously. You were in the room. And given you those answers around parking, we are talking about 24 additional huts in an area that has over a mile of on-street parking, plus the two grassed areas down towards Barton's Point. So there is certainly a good amount of parking in the area, and I don't believe this proposal is going to generate the parking issues that are being articulated tonight.
There's too much parking now. There's a mile of seafront. On a sunny day, cars are parked all the way back into the estate. At least three roads back from the sea. There isn't room for people to park their own cars, even let alone anybody else's. There's a serious parking issue in that area. Okay. Even at 7 o'clock in the morning, you can't get into the car park. No, it's unbelievable.
How do we resolve that? Because I'm genuinely interested in how.
Tarmac a strip along the seaward side of the lead and park cars in the head on or completely on that.
So onto the slope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So take an element of the slope.
And put some parking meters up.
Without charge.
Put some parking meters up. That's the only area in Swale that doesn't have charge. That's fine.
So, can I just ask one last question to Dolly? What would you see as a decent consultation? Because we bought this. This is the structure that the council has set up for talking about local issues. So, what do you want me to do differently?
I think maybe if I throw that question back at you and say, well, actually, if you were so sure this was a fantastic idea, absolutely, 100% you felt that this was the only way to do it, then surely there would be no problem. in asking residents their views, because they don't agree with you. So if this is what the council feels is the 100% best way forward, there shouldn't be any hands up. It should be fantastic to rubber stamp. And I do take the point that you may have come to the parish beforehand, absolutely. But I think you should be there now. If you're proposing this and you're looking at this and you're looking at permanent change to assets in ward, which this will be, we're not going to put them up and take them down. In fact, they're going to go to people, whether they're rented out or whether they once it's done, it's finished. There is no opportunity to go back. If we were so sure, then I would think we'd love to have you at the parish. We'd love to give those residents the opportunity to come and talk about it, because we know that we had the response from the public. There's no reason to say we wouldn't have that response again, whether it's in support or not in support. You know, all we're looking for is a bit of transparency and actually taking people with you. Don't do things to people, do things with people. If this is the best course of action for them, they'll agree with you and there will be no problems. But this isn't what's happening, is it?
So can I just check by your answer? Your answer to my question is for me to attend a parish council meeting in an open setting like I'm attending tonight.
Yes, we've got to have.
Okay. I'm happy to come.
Oliver.
Yeah, Chair. So currently the ones we've got are quite underused. Because they're not, people aren't in there every day. So have you kind of sort of daily plan? Because week is quite a long time, you know, you could get the amount of new client on for a week, it gets Thursday. You know, it would be able to go on a few days. So I was wondering if you had a look at the daily plan.
Yeah, really interesting question. I go back to the fact that there isn't a hut on the borough that isn't occupied. So I can't control how those people use or don't use the beach huts. So there are a number of business models, and I touched on the fees and charges document, which is in the budget consultation, and certainly recommend feedback on that. Historically, we've only offered a sale of the hut and then an ongoing ground rent or an annual rent where we retain. So this year we've added in the weekly. The difference is ultimately the resource and the capacity to be able to do that. So if I hire it to you for the day, I'm not saying that you would, Councillor Eakin, and you made a big mess of it and somebody had got a booking the next day, I'm needing to charge a hell of a price for somebody to give you the keys in the morning, take the keys from you in the evening and clean it if you've left it in a mess. So the business model becomes quite cost prohibitive, which is why we're entertaining the weekly rent to see what type of take up there is and how much operational issues they give. So the aim was to use some of these new huts to trial exactly what we heard when we came out to Minster Parish Council previously, was about that lack of access for local people. So that was directly put in response to comments made previously.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Picking up on that point, because sticking to what's on the paper first. This weekly rental, I think, is a good idea in practice. I think it then becomes cost prohibitive. Like I'm saying, personally, you've got officer time to deal with that, the rental scheme, making sure that it's in a fixed standard. The council is then responsible for maintenance. But also the system you've got at the moment, whether it's an owner or a renter, they're paying ground rent, they're paying their rent, the council getting income. What happens for the 4 or 5 months of the year when it's like tonight, when it's freezing cold, pitch black, no one's going to want to be there? The council then has an empty hut, and all we hear is people moaning these huts aren't used. Picking up on that, we hear the huts aren't used, but then we're also hearing it's going to cause parking. It can't both.
Yeah,
now, I do challenge this idea of there hasn't been consultation. Martin, you produced a beach hut policy in 2018 that underwent consultation. You attended Minster Parish Council more than once, I believe. It also says in the report that beach huts are a priority in our Slough visitor economy frame. That also underwent substantial consultation. So people coming late to the game now, accusing people of not consulting with the public when it was done previously. What I would argue is that when that policy was produced in 2018, we should have put huts in then. My final comment is my concern about the 12 at Lanesdown is on the basis that we've only got 13 people who list Lanesdown as preference. Trying to convince 12 of those to take them up might be difficult.
So thank you, I appreciate that. It's certainly, as I said at the start, it's a topic that I feel like I've talked to a lot of people about on a number of occasions. So I note that. I would say that there's 13 at Lanesdown and 169 that have said they would like either. So we asked them, do you want Minster only, Lanesdown only, or do you not mind? So I would add potentially some customers from the 169 as well as the 13. So I'm not concerned about filling the capacity at Lanesdown. Thank you.
Right, we've got 7 more people wishing to speak. Pat?
Yeah, just to reiterate, you've been to Minster Parish Council several times. Don't remember you ever coming up here and to explain to us. And I think Lanesdown Parish Council only said that they didn't think it was a good idea when this first consultation went out because of the loss of all that seafront view where there is a car park. I don't think that's changed. And I think you really need to look at what's been going on up there today. And then you can judge for yourself about parking issues, because that's a narrow road. Can't pass each other in that area there, and it's still a 60 mile an hour, which they always travel down there at 60 miles an hour. It's supposed to be a country park, but I don't know any country parks where people can go along at 60 miles an hour. And I know they've been trying to get something done about that, the parish council, for many, many years, and nothing's. But yes, I think Lanesdown Parish Council would have liked to have been included in the consultation. We did in 2018. This, as I say, comes across as a faked conflict, and we're not getting a chance to even say it. And it will, not mile, that's not mile. It's a very small area, and it will be taken up the whole of the city.
Thank you, Chair. Sort of must need to my age. I've been listening to some of the comments who've been shown interest in this year. And I'm sort of semi-retired, so I was going to seaside towns rather than steel mills and construction sites. You know? I've been to some seaside towns that have got small, very small looking beach huts. They're nearly half the size of what you're building, and they're also subdivided into 4. And they're individually let out on a day or short-term basis. And that would be much cheaper to produce. There's more people, and that's day-to-day rentals. And I noticed that it's out, you book them online through the tourist centre. So you wouldn't be talking about opposite time. You'd have a great bit of income that would come in that would help keep the tourist centres going, you know, and starting up. So if you're taking up half the space and you've got 4 people are using, they usually can change their clothes, it's a day or weekend arrangement, and that's perfect. It's stuff to attract the train trading. You know, they're used to in the past. Come down the weekend, Saturdays, it's coming to change your gear. You've got your beach gear in the daytime, you want to get changed to go to the mills before you go home. I see that as a very good place that also would serve people who want short-term use of somewhere to put their gear, rather than just a full-size beach hut. They look exactly the same, they're just miniatures, and they're split into 4. It's just an idea, and sorry to throw something new into the games. Thank you.
Simon?
Yeah, I've got a few points. I think I should congratulate myself. It's attracted so many visitors. and the levelling up fund, the whole thing is to attract visitors to the island. We've had so much in beach huts. We had a national magazine come and do an article on us for our beach hut, and it was published a couple of months ago. There's the car park at the top of the stairs where the last new beach hut was on Minster, and we park in there sometimes, and that car park's always empty. I think the more beach huts, could you use any along that Barnstable Green space? It talks about putting car park on there where the old, you know, along there. You know, you don't necessarily have to have a sea view in a beach hut. You should just walk across the shingle bank. There's so many people that windsurfing and that there. In terms of let, you could use something like Airbnb. They do it all for you. They insure it. You could put a cleaning fee on it. You know, you haven't got a lot of officers time, just a cleaning company to go in and clean. The only other thing I would say, as an owner's perspective, is the spec. When you tender the new ones, all right, I own mine and I accept the responsibility. We've got to change a lot of the posts that are buried in the ground. They've all rotted. They've never specified the correct timber first time round. So you want to be cautious of that. But I think we're all about making the island better, and these things are doing that. And I can keep putting ourselves down. Yes. So stronger doors, bits of fibre, because we had a lot of break-ins on. But the main thing is the quality of the timber. There's been a lot of rock in some of them.
Okay,
I'd like to say, I don't know whether the piece of land, whether you own it or not, but the piece between Barton's Point and the grass verge that we've got there going along to where the boats are also stored, that piece is always wasted, isn't it? That piece of green that's on there, and you've put bollards up or you've put stones up there so people aren't able to go on there, but could you not take the people who are rent-free that are up on the top in the motorhomes, could you not make them go across there so that more people could come along and at least get the sea views and such on that beach, because it's not being appreciated. It's being put there by people who are moving on the island, not giving anything to the island anyway, and living there rent-free. So can they not be moved onto the green over there, and then people could use the beach there? I think then the parking that we have further up, because I do the Nordic walking there, and it's so impossible to find parking in the mornings to be able to, in time, to start the walk. Because but I agree with you, that that's such a small park now, isn't it? With regards to what's happening there, could that even that could be used for parking? Is that not possible? Do you own it? You own the land there? Between the Bartons, where you go onto the Bartons Point and then you come further along the grass verge there, and you've got the boatyard, haven't you?
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
That piece of grass there, could that not be used?
Yeah, potentially. We're certainly trying to control use of
But
sheep.
it's a large area, it's much bigger than the car park that we've got, isn't it? At the other end.
yeah,
Yeah, we're certainly looking to, I mean, I'm hearing loud and clear the parking concerns tonight, so
That has before anything he's doing.
clearly I will take that away, in order to.
We seem to be thinking of people coming to the island, and we're not concerned about the islanders, and I think that's very strong going through the island. A lot's being said, and the rumbling that's going around is they don't care about us on the island. All they want to do is to bring the tourists here, not the people who pay the rates and live here.
okay. Yes,
Can I just ask, has there been any consideration with putting beach huts back in Sheerness? We used to have beach huts along the seafront. I know it would be a little bit imaginative to get them in with the sea wall, but there are ways of doing it. And if they were going to be weekly rentals, it would be ideal for people coming away from the island to catch a train to Sheerness and then walk up the seafront and have a beach hut to use as a base for the day. I know my family used to do it. We used to have a week's holiday in Marlow. We'd rent the beach hut for the week and travel down on the train every day when I was young. So, you know, there are ways of getting beach huts back into Sheerness, and I'm sure that, you know, one you'd actually looked at that, or whether it's something we could look at together.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not wedded to the existing locations. The reason that it works in the existing locations is you've already got them there, you've got the community, and that's why we wanted to add to existing ones. I'll be honest, we have looked at Sheerness along the promenade, and given that I struggled to keep benches from being burnt down on Sheerness seafront, we were very concerned about the vulnerability of those huts down on the seafront. Only yesterday, I get a text message from one of the team saying that the flagpole has been vandalised and broken down on the seafront there, and it's quite soul destroying when we see things that we're doing to try and improve the area being treated in that way. So it's not never, and the lighting will clearly help with that concern over vandalism. But certainly that was the key, because it's not
had vandalism at Minster, so what's the difference?
it's more overlooked at Minster than it is at Sheerness was our concern, but it's never a complete no. It's we've considered it, and we may well revisit at a later time. Right, because I agree with you, you know, I'm involved in the levelling up fund bid, and part of it is about that the train station, the gateway down to the seafront, and improving that area and connecting it. And so if we achieve that, I think actually possibly in Beachfields Park itself, like you say, it doesn't have to be a sea view. So there are lots of options for this in the future. We're not just wedded to the two locations. And again, more than happy through Jay and myself to hear of ideas that locals have got to help improve the offer.
Well, the Sheerness Town team would only be too happy to meet with you and discuss it.
Fabulous, thank you. Really good.
Angela.
Thanks, Chair. Back to the report. I think all the time I've been a councillor, I don't think there's ever been a time when the staff are sitting there twiddling their thumbs looking for a project to do. So on that basis, this report says we are now getting resources now being freed up to look at this project again. So can I ask, since the initial consultation, the council there is correct, you know, if they've been built the day after the consultation, then what? So my question is, what has changed since we did all that consultation with Minister and Lansdowne? Obviously, there's now an issue been raised about car parking, but I can't see anything else.
Yeah, other than time passed, clearly there was something that took up a couple of years of our time. So we weren't able to direct the resource to go ahead and build, but we are now looking to progress, but still keen to listen. But certainly the parking concerns, given my other hats that I wear, I'm more than happy to consider. But I think there is already a precedent for beach huts in those locations. We do not get lots of complaints around them. There is clearly a demand, as shown by the waiting list. So I don't think a huge amount has changed since those original discussions.
Okay, I'll take two more. You seem to be going back over past comment. Yes.
Following on from Paul's idea, actually, I did send this into the levelling up thing. The piece of grass behind the swimming pool is actually level with the promenade, unlike all the other places. And I've seen photographs of rows of completely different beach huts. They're typed to one another, you know, like terraced, with flood doors as their front doors, instead of the ceiling, just on that bit, so that you'd be straight out onto the promenade, or during the winter and high tides and the storms and things, you shut the doors because they are flood doors, all painted up nice and bright. I have sent them in at some point. And then you could also have the old one, which was of a kiosk. And that would mean that you would have access through the little kiosk onto the promenade, because the real big problem in Sheerness is there's so much separation between the town and the beach. And it would be a way of making less separation if you had the odd little kiosk or even just a sort of walkway through with the flood things. Because as I say, it's the same level as the promenade, not those waterfall steps.
No, they were behind the seawall. There was a wall between them and the promenade. That area and used to have a bandstand in the middle, and it had these beach huts around the outside. They were really just changing rooms. They weren't much bigger than a toilet cubicle. They were on three sides of that piece of land behind the sea.
Yeah, I'm talking about the picture that I've seen, not.
Yeah, you've not seen a very old picture.
Where the beach.
Oh, no, I'm saying what actually happened in Sheerness. There were the green behind where the sea view was had beach huts on three sides. And as I say, they were about the size of a toilet cubicle, big enough for people to change in. But they were there until the I think it was the 78 floods. It was one of the floods that actually caused so much damage, and just took them away. Last one. Yes.
Thank you. So, because I'm going to go on the opposite, I'm actually on the lines with Councillor Beer. Parking, I don't see as a problem because the things are never used. So, you know, I don't see that as much of a problem. One of the things playing devil's advocate would be, could we not put a selling on clause in at least? So when people go and buy them, like the original, it was £3,000 or £4,000, don't use them, and then when they want to sell them, they're selling them on for like 10 to 15 to £20,000. It would be nice if we had a sell on clause so we could claw back some of the money on it.
So I'm pleased to tell you, Councillor Darby, there is already that clause in the licences. So anyone that passes on a beach hut has to go through the council, so it can be offered to the waiting list. And for the administration and sale, we take a percentage of that cost. So that clause is already there and used. We've used it a couple of times already. So this is, you know, I can assure you that the scheme, and I'm happy to publish the non-named license on the website to show people that there is absolutely due consideration around this scheme. We run it, we compare ourselves to a lot of other coastal towns. I've worked in other authorities that have these services. So I would think that most things, I'm not going to say everything, most things that you guys are concerned about are covered through the existing terms and conditions. Nothing is changing.
So, just follow on, is that percentage or is it just a straight fee?
It's a percentage or straight fee, whichever is the highest. So it's written within the fees and charges document again that's out for consultation. Councillor Dolby, I can only apologise we didn't receive it, but I promise you we did send emails out on the 24th of November to all of the ward councillors alongside the parish councillors as well.
Okay, we've finished it there, but before I finish it, don't get confused with the car parking and the lack of use of beach huts. If none of those beach huts were ever used, there still wouldn't be enough car parking for the people who use the beach and the frontage. It's just that adding the further beach huts would potentially add to the parking problem on that area. So the two are related, but they're not dependent on each other. Okay, I think we've had a good discussion on that. We'll move on then to public forum. And this is to enable members of the public to direct questions or suggest agenda items for future meetings. Yes.
Can you please tell me why Marine Parade has a free car park for people who don't even live on the island? If you go along that free car park, you'll find that it's, a lot of them are just really put in store. You can see they've all been wrapped up, ready for the winter. So they've got free storage there. And if you even go in that car park, you look to be an intruder. I've got a hairdresser that's quite close there, and I went in there, and it was a threat as to whether I left my car there or not. They're looking at me as if I shouldn't be there, and it looks as if they're living there all the time. They are free. From that, I'd like to point out now that we live in Trinity Road. We pay a permit till the end of the year. We can only go into that one, so we pay a quarter of the amount, which is 300. We pay 80. But now we've been going in there and we've got fines, and yet we've paid our permit for next year. And they've also taken them from one of the ladies here, went in to the gateway, paid her money for the year, and then the next day she got a warning that she shouldn't even be in there. We've had that concession, and it's given to us many years ago when they changed over and put the traffic lights in. Do you remember of the layout completely?
Do you know anything about this?
I know something, I've had people from Trinity Road tell me that all of a sudden they've started getting notices on their cars.
Fines, 5 of us had fines.
I believe it originally started with, this is a warning, it's not a fine at this point.
No, I didn't even get a warning. A lot of us didn't even get warnings, we just got
Okay.
fines. So they gave some warnings, some fines.
But we
Okay,
never-
stop,
we were
stop,
never told this was
stop,
gonna
stop,
happen.
stop. Oh,
Sorry, guys, it's me again. So I look after the parking service. Councillor Harrison raised this with me. I know you went through Councillor Harrison recently, so raised it with me last week. I'm going to need to delve into the archives of Swale House to find some of the answers. So what I have said to Councillor Harrison, and I've said to you, will say to you tonight is what I'm proposing to do is to put those, because there has been a mixture, from what I can see, there has been a mixture of penalty charge notices and warning notices that have been issued. So I'm happy to place those on hold whilst we do the investigation.
Thank you.
Clearly, it's an agreement that was it debated some 20 years ago.
Years ago, we lost the parking from outside the house and we weren't compensated for that.
Yeah.
Which took and devalued our property. So it was a concession we were given, but we still paid that quarter of the fee of the 300, and that's gone up to 900. That's another thing. How do you go from 300 for parking to 900? We can't afford, we're pensioners, I'm 85, that lady's 87. We can't afford about 274 for a quarter a year from £80.
And furthermore, I know education, so
So therefore, that's
Like no park anywhere else.
I had a parking elsewhere, and this was a number of years ago. I just went from the car park, had to go in my own house. I dropped outside the house and just knocked. He was working in the garage, and I knocked just as a courtesy call and said, "Excuse me, I know it's your parking space normally, but can I park there? I've just got to go back home. I'm 4 doors along." He put a screwdriver to my head and said to me, "I can push in once and you'll be paralysed. If I pump my hand on top, you'll be dead." I just froze. I always thought,
please,
no, but that's
no,
that
do
does
this.
apply to this, because we're now having to park
Yeah.
round because we haven't any parking. So we're having to go and park on the street. We park outside somebody's house. I am terrified because that happened to me and the police tried to get him and he went off to Spain to live. But I know you think that's in the past, but it affects us now because you've taken away our
Yeah,
parking.
but it's not what we're talking about.
Yes, it is. It does.
We're
It
talking
does,
about
because
your
it's,
parking
yes, but it's
in
that
car
fear of
park.
having to park
and-
round the side roads.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate
it does
that.
apply.
I appreciate that.
You know, and that's why we pay it there, because we think it's safe in front of us.
That's right.
And it's been done so badly, it's been sneaked in. And I got letters to prove here, somebody said that it's always been that we could go in just weekends. Well, who's going to pay £80 just to go in at weekends? But Now, it will have gone up, obviously, but it's still only been.
The officer has
But I've
told
got
you
proof
that
here
he's
that
going
he
to look
sneaked
into
it
it.
in. No, it was sneaked in when we had the pandemic was on. And I've got the letters here to prove it. Now, I know Angela hasn't seen them. I will show you, I've got proof with me, that that's when they put it through. And we're going round in circles and we're not getting anywhere. And we just think we've got to give up our cars at our age when we need it the most. For what reason? We're paying our fee.
You've just been told by the officer that he's going to look into it.
Yes, I know, but we still.
So that is it,
Well, I know he's looking into it, but he didn't know those points of view, so that's why I'm telling him.
right?
If he can't look into it, he doesn't know all the points, can he?
Don't keep going on about it.
I'm sorry, but that's what we're
We
here
all
for.
know what you've done.
Okay, now these ladies want to speak, please.
No, Angela.
I'm going to say that I know local SPC councillors know that there were different rules put in during the pandemic, parking in the car parks, parking permits on the streets and all this. I couldn't quote the chapter and verse, that man probably can. But the issue in Trinity Road goes back 22 years, and we had the highway agreement at the time, so we were doing things for KCC, and I'm 99% certain when they took back the highways agreement, they took all their papers home with them. So that's why so far I haven't had any luck. Our officers finding any paperwork, but Martin has agreed to see what digging he can do. They go back 22 years.
What leads of it? Steve, what? His data protection.
Please, Cameron.
I was going to say, if Martin looks at the fees and charges, which I know you all know the chapter and verse anyway, but those permits, it does say Trinity Road residents only, and there is a reason for that, as they say, because that they lost their parking, and that was the agreement that they could purchase a permit. On the first issue that the resident raised regarding the car park, I'm assuming you mean the Sheppey Shore.
Yeah.
In the parking terms, a vehicle is not allowed to park there more than 24 hours at a time. My argument or suggestion would be, why are our civil enforcement officers wasting their time ticketing people who've got permits when they could go to the ship on shore and ticket a dozen cars, and make some money?
We're losing £900 a year from us not being there.
So, I mean, absolutely, just to reiterate, what I've said to you before the meeting.
Yes.
I will put any current charges on hold while we investigate, because clearly there is a reason. That is not a standard permit, the £80 a year, you're right. If you buy a season ticket to park in our car parks for the year, it will cost you £900. So there is a reason that that permit type exists. I just need to find out the reason why, because
And we've been 21 years, you know, going in and being safe. Now we're not safe.
So, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So the reason I can't give you the answer tonight is because I need to investigate that. Because unfortunately, although I've been here a while, I wasn't here 22 years ago. And there is nowhere in the paperwork that we've got written down where this agreement is in place.
Steve Warren was the one who proposed all those years ago.
Hence, I don't even know, I'm afraid I don't even know who he is.
But he's councillor and ex-mayor.
I've only been with the authority for 6 years, so I've endeavoured that I will go away and have a look. I will speak to colleagues that have been here for 22 years.
Well, he's in his 90s, but his memory's very good still, and he said that
When we're not in there, the car park's empty.
it's totally empty. You could go there, you know,
And
and
we
you're
can't
losing
find
nine.
anywhere else to park because everybody's parked outside there.
I absolutely understand
And
that.
we're frightened that we're going to someone's place.
I absolutely understand that,
Yeah.
but what I would counter with that is there are lots of people in the borough that want to park outside of the front of their house.
Yes,
And can't because they don't have this proposed permit in place. So
That wasn't a favour, that wasn't given us to as a favour, that was devaluing our property when they did that all those years ago. So they weren't, it was just a case of no money was exchanged, they were saying we would give you a parking space, but we still paid for it. So they didn't do us any favour at that time, and now they're devaluing it again, because
Can I say that you've made your point?
I'm sorry, but you say. it's
I'm
no-
sorry that you've made your point.
Okay,
You've had an answer.
And I
The-
think it's going
the
to
other-
repeat.
The answer to your question was that there is a part in the proposed fees and charges for next year relating to Trinity Road.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which is
So-
274
yeah, so that's in there.
from 80.
Okay, so
No, so that is just to
No.
clarify that is a misconception, so
Yeah.
there is not.
One man's already paying it, 3 doors along from us, he's paying that amount already now.
What he's purchasing is a season ticket to be able to park in the car park,
Just in that one.
in all of the car
No,
parks.
no, it's just in that one.
All of the time. So, like I say, I need to investigate because I've got nothing down that says what your agreement was 20 years ago.
To the gentleman.
okay, look, please,
I'm sat in.
Finish.
Can I please make my point if you would mind, please? When I first purchased a permit as a newcomer to Sheppey, I've only been here 9 years. I purchased a permit because parking on the road was destroying my vehicle. The curbs are approximately that high in some places. When you open your car door, the car door scrapes along the pavement. So there's times when I've got photographs on my phone. I can't even get out of my vehicle when I park up because the curb's so high. Furthermore, the tyres sit in that much water all night long or until the next time I move my vehicle. That's not good for the underneath of my vehicle. It's not good for the tyres. And I do wonder what Sheppey drainage system is like for the drains of seats so low underneath the pavements.
you're nearly 6 feet below sea level.
Okay. But it's the reason why the water sits above the drains. Is that to do with the drainage to help the island? Is that a benefit to the island of the coast?
It's not, it's to do with it, the curb is high to stop the water coming in your house,
Right, okay.
but the drains are,
Where she has to go if she can't in the car park.
Yeah. but the drains aren't very good at all in Sheerness.
But that's the.
They'll put in-
Obstacle,
They'll
that's one
put
of
in
the
nearly
obstacles
200
we got
years
a lot
ago.
of.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just clarify that, a colleague council was involved in this years ago. But in line with anything else that we've done, it would not have been properties in perpetuity. It would have been people. There is a big difference. If you move there, buy a season ticket, because you know that's something different. This refers to a number, diminishing number of individuals. I just wanted us to be quite clear on that. And can I be clear that Mr. Cassell has said that those number permits, I don't know what letter they are, those number permits, they can be in that car park and they won't get a ticket or a warning notice until such time as you have sorted out what you're sorting out.
Yeah.
Can I go back in, park in there now?
Correct.
Oh, thank you.
They, yes.
Until it's sorted out.
Yes.
While I'm investigating, because I don't know that agreement, I have to take on face value that the agreement is there. I've got no way of proving that agreement at the moment, hence why the officers took the action. So we will defer that for those permits until we come out with a clear answer.
Yeah, there is a differential. There is a differential. I just want to be clear there. That lady just said she moved in 6 years ago. Yeah. She was not in covered by the agreement. And for the such time, that's what I would have understood, yeah. Not the properties in perpetuity. People were there at the time. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time is up, we've got no more public forum. Are there any local issues that anybody wants to raise on behalf of residents or communities? Andy?
Thank you, Chairman. It would be remiss of me not to mention continued illegal dumping in East Church. The tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of tons of farmland spoil that continues to flow onto this island at ridiculous times of the day, causing untold damage to our infrastructure and roads and drainage and electrical systems. I know many agencies are involved, including County Council and Swale. I urge, for you, Mr. Chairman, this committee escalates that through to that board and engage with the environment agencies to find out what the heck is going on. Because it's been several months since we've had public meetings, indulgence from those agencies, and to be fair, the people are getting more and more fed up with it. And I know we will all have a vested interest in that, because the state of the lower road between Cowsley Corner and Barnwell Drive, I know there's been some patching going on over the past week, but it's deteriorating as we sit here, and will only get worse, Chairman.
I can remember in the past when, before the seawall was built at Minster, there were a number of quite hefty fines handed out to people who were tipping earth over the edge of the cliffs. This would have been back in the late 60s, early 70s. But I cannot understand for the life of me how they're carrying on tipping earth. Because as an engineer, I know that that is going to cause more cliff fall than prevent it. And I don't know what idiot is still allowing it, but somebody must be able to stop it.
Get your knowledge, Chairman, thank you for letting me come back. If we rate this in terms of scale of tip in Kent, this is in the top 2 today. This is in the top 2 illegal tips in Kent. It is an utter disgrace and an environmental catastrophe unfolding before us. We've heard comments earlier about the wildlife. It is a disaster.
But I understand it's in the hands of the Environment Agency.
Oh, how excited we are with that.
That's right. Okay. Update on work plan. There is a list in the agenda of funding requests.
Page 17.
Sorry, my fingers don't work as well as I used to. Yeah.
On page 17 of the agenda pack, there's a cover report just explaining the background. So for this year, Sheppey Area Committee were allocated a total of £47,000. And at the September Area Committee meeting, £38,412.10 of funding was allocated, which means that there was, or there still is, £8,587.90 of funding remaining. At the last meeting, councillors requested that a second funding round take place, which was carried out. And that closed on the 3rd of November, and bids to the value of £20,507.90 were received for consideration by the committee. They were assessed for eligibility by officers and a scoring process carried out, which you will see the results of on page 19, sorry, 19. And there is also a breakdown of all reports on each bid can be found from page 21. the scoring process is set around categories and criteria that the area committee agreed back in June, and that was how the scoring was made. And the options for voting on are very much based on the scoring. So if we look on page 18, I'll just run through the different options. So option 1 would be for the highest scoring bids to receive 100% of funding, which would mean that the first two, the highest two would receive 100%. However, the second of those would receive slightly less so that we don't go over the remaining funding. Option 2 would pay out just over 72% to the highest 3 scoring applications. That would mean that more bids would receive funding, but they would get a smaller amount. Option 3 pays out 41, just over 41% to all bids. But again, they would receive a smaller amount. And then we always have to have an option where you do nothing. So that is option 4, just for completeness. So I'll hand back to the chair on how what you would like to go forward.
Cameron.
I would like to heavily propose option 2. And I would just like to say that we seem to have a 13p underspend there. So I will suggest making Sterling's Farm on 2,075 rather than giving us 90 pence. And then rounding up the friendly faces of 10.2 to 1.9.
Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you.
Sorry, who seconded?
Angela?
Yes, I should be opposing that, Mr. Chairman. I believe that we should be spending Swale Borough Council money on improving or enhancing Swale Borough Council's assets and putting money towards the lighting along the Sheerness Promenade. I can't think of anything better in terms of improving our assets. And with the greatest respect, parish councils are precepting authorities, and they can put their precept up by 700% if that's what they want, because there are no rules at all. Swale Borough Council can't do that. We are limited in terms of how much money we can raise. We have issues going forward because of the cost to the council of the Brexit, the pandemic, the inflation and all the rest of it. I can't see, if we don't put more money towards these lights now, we will end up with a couple of lights along by the leisure centre, which could add to our levelling up fund, and nothing either side. There'll be a little bit of light in the middle. I really think that we should be improving our assets. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bill?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to propose option 1.
You can't propose option 1 because option 2 has already been proposed. You can talk to that up.
I am talking about it, thanks, sir. Right, friendly faces of Kent, application Sheppey 028. This is a concern, if you like, about risk. People are being asked to attend this building, having to leave their possible warm home, go out in the cold, go in this building, which should be warm, have a cup of tea and a biscuit for a certain amount of time, then come out of this building, back into the cold, get all the way home, and put the heating on again. It's not only that, COVID is still rife in meeting areas, including locations like this. I don't think at this time that is appropriate for friendly faces of Kent. Thank you.
Okay, any more? Yes.
Can I just say, Chair, that based on Liverpool Parish Council actually belongs to Swale Council. It's list Parish Council and it's an online management committee. parish council, only put, I don't think we have increased our precept plan. In the 25 years that I've been in the parish council. And now is not the time for us to put more money on the precept. The village hall is a vibrant place, it's the only place that people live together. We have a very, large, children's centre there, children's playground. There are a lot of people from the whole of the area of Ireland. We have a boxing club there. I don't really want to take your time listing the amount of things that the parish council have gained grants for from other agencies to enhance the village hall and the play area at the village hall without any penalties going over anything. I think we've had one grant, and that was towards a slide for kids. Other than that, the parish council always sought outside funding. The village hall committee has, because of the times it's been flooded, now recently spent what money they had on new floodgates to try to prevent that happening again. And I think to just put it on residents by saying, oh, increase your precept at this time is not something I would like to put to the rest of the parish council. And this is a small thing that we have asked for.
Sorry.
Just a quick one on the friendly faces. Today, I didn't quite very much for them. I helped a lady from there carry an electric fire home, and she can't afford to put her heating on. Her gas bill was £70, and she can't afford it, so she puts that on for a few hours a day to keep warm. So the hub is in hall. They don't go home to a warm home, they go home to a cold home. And the second one, the lighting replacement, just to clarify this, you need 186,000 and there's only 78,000, so the 9,000 that we don't save for years to come until there's enough money, is that right? Or
No, the intention is to get as much done in the first phase.
as you do?
So we would do,
Are we not waiting to
No.
accumulate the rest of the money?
no, that's correct, yeah.
Anybody else? Put this proposal to the vote. Those in favour? Do, please show.
7, I'll make that 7, yes.
Those against, please show.
4, 5, 5 against.
5 against. And one mathematics, that's passed. So we've agreed on option 2.
Can I just check what the amounts were again? So that was to bring Curtis Farm up to, what was it?
2,074.90.
Well, we're putting the extra 2,075.
Yeah.
What was the other one you were suggesting changing, councillor Beard?
French based on your 3 big pennies left.
Okay.
2001.
Yeah, I've made that change. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, everybody. We're then on to agenda item 11. Are there any matters for us to refer to? Refer back to us, and there aren't. And is there anything that we wish to refer to a service committee for consideration? We want to refer East Church back to
Yes,
the
please,
Environment Committee.
Thank you.
Nothing we can do apparently.
I guess that, Jim, but it was worth asking.
Well, it's worth a try.
You want that minute?
The next meeting is on the 21st of February at 7 o'clock. And watch this space for the venue. Thank you all for coming. Have a safe trip home, especially those living in Laysdown. Leave pause.